The Crane Maiden, a retelling of the Japanese folktale Tsuru No Ongaeshi by PJ Leonard. I had never drunk alcohol before, and I never would again. I hated how it made me stagger down the dark street as though I had forgotten how to walk. But I couldn't help myself then. Somewhere on the train home, I'd lost my letter of dismissal that I'd crunched into a tight ball, but I still kept my fist clenched. And that's when I heard it. As I walked past the park, there came a rustling noise. Not like a squirrel snuffling through leaves, no. This sounded bigger, like a person. I spun around and peered through the trees. Who would be in the park at this time of night? My heart pounded as the noise grew louder and clearer. It sounded like a struggle, as though someone were fighting or stuck to something. "Hello?" I called. My voice sounded slurred, and I leaned on the tree for support. Why couldn't I even stand up straight? "Is anyone there? Are you all right?" The noise didn't stop, thrashing around in the darkness. On any other night, I would have just walked away and not got involved. But I had lost my job, and the alcohol in my blood dampened my fear. I walked into the black park, following my ears. A big, white shape lashed out at me, and I yelled and fell backwards on the mud. A flutter of wings battered my outstretched arm. Was it a bird? I scrambled away a safe distance, blinking hard at whatever it was. It was a crane. But unlike the cranes I always saw in the river from the train to work, this one was not as still as a statue, but it rolled about through the leaves, kicking them up. What was a crane doing here? There was no lake or river in the park. Was that why it was so upset? But then I saw something shiny glint on its neck. For a wild moment, I thought that it was wearing a necklace. But then I saw that it was a plastic ring, trash from a pack of beer cans. I bit my lip. I couldn't just leave this poor creature. The more it struggled, the tighter that ring would get, and it would choke to death for sure. But if I tried to get close, the crane would attack me again, and that beak looked awfully sharp. But I clenched my teeth and stood up. Hands raised in what I hoped looked like a friendly gesture, I slowly walked towards the crane. The crane caught my eye, and we both paused. I swallowed. To my surprise, the crane didn't lunge at me, but it stayed still, watching me carefully as I tiptoed to it. "It's okay," I murmured. "I'm not going to hurt you." I raised a hand to the crane's neck, and it flinched back. I pulled my hand back too. But then I slowly reached forward again. The crane didn't move this time, letting me touch the plastic ring on its neck. It was stuck tight, snagged in the feathers. "I'm sorry, I lied," I said. "This might hurt a bit. I'll do it quickly to get it over with, okay?" The crane just stared at me. What was I thinking? This bird didn't know what I was talking about, I told myself. I seized the plastic and pulled. The bird shrieked and squirmed. The plastic ring snapped, and the crane knocked me backward. I had one last glimpse of the crane looking at me with an unreadable eye before it flew away. I looked at the broken plastic in my hand, but before I could feel any warmth of pride in my good deed, the clouds above parted and the moonlight shone down on me, revealing my suit. It was torn in several places and covered in mud. I punched a pile of leaves in anger. Helping a crane didn't make me feel any better, I told myself furiously as I stomped home. It had only made things worse. Oh, how wrong I was. I moved out of my house within a week. Not that it had been a fancy, expensive place. Far from it. But without a job, I could only afford to live in a creaky old share house in the rough part of the city. The carpets felt sticky, and the window in my private room was thinner than paper, making the noise from the bar opposite so loud that I didn't get a single good night's sleep while I was there. I was the only one in the share house, it seemed. Nobody else was as down on their luck as I was, apparently. Until one morning, while I was making myself a coffee in the shared kitchen, and she walked in. "Hello," she said brightly, placing a backpack on the old kitchen table. "Do you live here?" Yes," I said, nearly spilling the coffee down my shirt. We looked at each other for a moment, and then I added, "Can I help you?" The young lady opened her bag and started pulling out wrapped vegetables, juices, and a bag of rice. "Oh, I've just moved in as well," she said, carefully placing the food into the whirring fridge. "The name's Tina. And you are?" She reached forward with a hand outstretched. I reached out to shake it, realized that I was about to hand her my mug of coffee, and we switched hands. Her face was so perfectly smooth that she could have been anything from a high school age to the same age as me. Tina looked at me expectantly, and I realized I hadn't answered. I told her my name. "I think I might have bought too much food," she pondered, holding an oversized cabbage. "Do you have any plans for dinner tonight?" "None yet," I said. "Then let's cook together," she said with another smile. "Do you have any allergies? I'm planning on making curry tonight." I'm fine," I said. Feeling acutely aware of how little I was talking and not wanting to seem unfriendly, I said, "That's very kind of you. Thank you. Feel free to use any of my tea and coffee whenever you like." I pointed to the pantry where it was kept, and Tina nodded. "I think I'm going to like it here," she said, picking up her bag. "See you at 6 o'clock." And she left the kitchen. I leaned on the kitchen table, feeling as though a whirlwind had just swept through the room. Had that really just happened? I didn't want to sound presumptive, but Tina seemed like far too nice of a person to be in a place like this. What was her story, I wondered. Over the next few days, Tina and I cooked together a few more times and spent a couple of long evenings over coffee in the shared lounge, sitting on the moth-eaten sofas and just chatting. I learned more about her and found out that her situation wasn't all that different from mine, that she'd moved to the big city in hopes of starting a new life and wasn't having a lot of success. "I thought it would be easy to get a job here," she said. "My little village had a post office, a small bakery, and some farms. That was it. The big city seemed to have so much more, but I had no idea it would be this hard." "I know how you feel," I said. "I lost my job recently. Getting a new one is going to be nearly impossible." "Really? Why?" "My only suit got damaged. I was trying to help this crane that got stuck in some trash in the park. I can't even afford to get it repaired, let alone get a new suit. So now I have nothing to wear to job interviews, unless I turn up in my pajamas." Tina looked at me carefully, then laid down her mug. I took a sip from mine. "Can I fix it?" I nearly spilled my coffee again. "Fix what?" "Your suit. It's a hobby of mine, really. Can I give it a try?" Sure," I said. "But I warn you, it's pretty beat up." But Tina just waved a hand. "Not a problem. But I'll need to go back to my home in the village for a few days. All of my best equipment is there. I'll be back by the end of the week." Thank you," I said, frowning. "You don't have to do this, you know. Is there anything I can do for you?" Tina laughed. "It's my pleasure. If you want to help me out, though, you can finish off the food in the fridge while I'm away." That didn't sound like a return favor to me. Why was Tina being so nice? I would have been suspicious, but Tina seemed pure somehow. Besides, who would want to steal my wreck of a suit? I handed over the suit to Tina in a carrier bag the next day. I tried my best to brush out the dirt stains the night before, but it still smelled like dirt and sweat. Tina took the bag with a cheerful farewell and left the share house, and I was alone again. The next day, I went shopping to replace the onion, minced meat, and pasta I'd used from the day before. When I opened the fridge to place the shopping inside, however, I did a double take to find the food already there. I looked around the kitchen. Had somebody else just moved in who just so happened to buy the exact same ingredients for spaghetti bolognese as I did? Maybe Tina had come back already. I rushed to her door and knocked, but there came no answer. The rest of the share house was utterly silent. For the next few days, I tried to catch the person who was refilling the fridge when I wasn't looking, hovering around the kitchen for hours, and sometimes pretending to return to my room and then launching back out. But I never saw anybody, and the fridge still magically replenished itself. Tina, I told myself. It had to have something to do with her. That lady was a real mystery. Sunday came, and as I was walking past Tina's room, I heard a rustling noise from within. Was she back? My heart leapt at my ribs, and even I was surprised at how happy I was. But then I listened closer to the sounds within the room. There was someone in her room, all right, but it didn't sound... Well, it sounded like a silent fight, bumping and crashing into the walls. I raised a shaking hand and knocked on the door. The door immediately flew open, and I leapt back. There stood Tina. She looked thin, dark bags under her eyes. Are you okay?" I said carefully. Her old smile spread across her face, and she held out her arms. A suit was draped across her hands, the most perfect suit I had ever seen. "Is that mine?" I said breathlessly. Tina nodded. "Do you like it?" I took it carefully from her hands, holding it like it was a baby. Instantly, I knew that it would be a perfect fit. Was this even my old suit? The material was so smooth that it felt like woven water. In fact, it felt oddly familiar. Where had I felt this kind of material before? Tina was still looking at me, looking worried for some reason. "It's perfect," I declared. "Really?" Tina looked both delighted and relieved, and the exhaustion on her face seemed to evaporate. "I'm glad to hear." "You should set up your own business for this," I said, holding the suit up to the light and marvelling at it. "You would be a massive hit. I'll tell everyone about you." Tina's cheeks blushed red. "That's very kind, but I don't think I could do this all the time. It takes a lot out of me." I scrambled for the right words to express how grateful I was, why she went through all of this effort just for me, and to ask if there was anything I could do for her, but instead I just stuttered and stammered stupidly. She laughed. "If you want to repay me, just go get that great job with it," she said. I grinned and nodded. I'd received an email yesterday asking if I could go to an interview on Monday. It was sudden, but with this new suit from Tina, I felt ready for anything. I thanked her once more, promised her a present if I passed the interview, and rushed back to my room to prepare. On Monday evening, I returned back to the share house, a wrapped gift and a bunch of flowers in my hands. I bounded up the steps 3 at a time. The perfect suit slid smoothly over my arms and legs as I moved. I charged down the corridor, stopping at Tina's door, straightened my necktie, and knocked. "Tina, I got it!" I said. "I got the job!" There was that noise again, like something big was thrashing around inside. Was that Tina? Or was there a thief in the room? A hot fury rose in my chest, and I pulled at the handle. To my surprise, it opened up straight away, and I fell into the room. A shadow flashed over my eyes, wings fluttered, but when I launched to my feet, Tina's room was empty. The window was wide open. I rushed over to look out, but nobody seemed to be there. I turned, and looked at the bed. Lying on the bedsheets was a single feather. I picked it up, running my fingertips through the soft down. It felt just like my suit. And just like the... No, that was impossible, wasn't it? Could it have been that Tina was... I looked out of the window at the clear, empty blue sky. I never saw Tina again. The end.